Welcome to the Anti-Social Podcast. Strangely enough, my name is Andy, and thanks for tuning in. Welcome to new and old listeners. I hope you enjoy or have been enjoying the podcast to date. We seem to be going full steam ahead. Lots of things in the pipeline, lots of stuff happening. Still only doing it on a weekly basis, even though I mentioned a while back that I wanted to double it up, but I haven't quite got there yet. I haven't really got an explanation for it at all. But hey, at least we're keeping it weekly, so it won't go any less than that. This is an interesting episode. I'm going to try something new. I am going to do a monthly catch-up with a friend of mine from the US who has previously appeared on the Antisocial podcast, Milton Mendonca. And Milton, for those who didn't listen to the previous episode, is the mastermind behind Infinity Concerts and is also a co-promoter for the ProgPower USA Festival that we'll be attending this year as artists. Milton and I chat quite a bit online and always have a good joke at other people's expense, and always good-natured, of course. And we just decided the other day that we should probably catch up a bit more often and record some more of our conversations. We were actually going to do a part 2 in the near future to discuss a few more things industry-based around bands and definitely getting more of a perspective from a booking agent and a promoter point of view. So we decided to combine the two ideas together, and what we hope to do is a monthly check-in, a monthly catch-up where we'll pick a topic in advance and we'll discuss that at length or however long we want to chat about it, depending on how much we were able to flesh out. And then we'll have a couple of regular segments, so to speak, that we'll touch on each time we catch up. So we do explain a little bit of this in the episode itself, but I'll quickly run through what it is now. And look, it will probably change over the coming months as things progress. We might come up with new ideas, or we might find the ones that we've got already, we're not getting much out of them. So this is definitely not set in stone, please excuse the pun. So what we've got is we're going to pick a main topic, a featured topic that we'll discuss. And then what we'll do is we'll, some of the other sections or segments of our monthly catch-up / check-in will be based around crazy people. So we'll fill each other in on any crazy people that we've encountered over the last several weeks since we last spoke, if any, or we might dig up some ones from the past, some that might have some good stories attached to it. So I think that'll be quite an entertaining part of the episode where we can go through and throw some good stories at each other. And this particular one, we got it off to a great start and was actually part of the inspiration behind this whole idea that we've come up with. The other one is going to be based around doing a shout out for some favourite unsigned bands that we're both listening to, whether it be new or old. I think probably the general rule, while we haven't really made any rules, probably the general rule is that they're whether they've been around for the last 10 years or they've only just come out to the scene. I think the main thing is that they're out there and they're working hard and still out there doing great things. So we're going to make an effort to plug a couple of bands each time we do catch up. And I hope that for those of you who do listen in, will check out the bands that we suggest. We'll try and make sure that we don't just throw anybody in there for the sake of it. We'll definitely pick bands that are worth your time. So we hope that you'll get something out of it and discover some great new talent and support them and hopefully become a band that either does become signed or just becomes successful from a completely independent point of view. But just a little way of giving some acknowledgement of some bands that are definitely hard working out there. And the last thing we'll do, just in spirit of ProgPower, is we'll just do a brief check-in just to see how we're both tracking from our own perspective areas leading up to the festival. I came up with the idea because I thought that maybe there'd be a lot of people out there who do attend the festival each year who might get a kick out of hearing a bit more of the behind the scenes or a little bit more of the processes involved, or certain steps that we might have to go through in order for us to play the festival, or from Milton's point of view, in order for the festival to actually run. And we touched on it briefly on this episode, and we'll continue to see how that progresses. And sometimes there might not be a lot of updates, but we'll definitely find something to chat about that'll touch base on the festival, and just to keep that theme moving and link back into the bigger picture of, I guess, how Milton and I came together. Sounding very... I don't even know what the word is. I'm going to stop right there. So we'll play it by ear. We're still trying to work out a name of what we're going to call this monthly catch-up. So we'll work that out over the coming days. So by the time this podcast is up, there will be a title. Whether that'll be witty or not is yet to be determined. But we will have a consistent title up each month, just so people will see it and know what it is. And that's about it. I'll put all the business part of the podcast at the end of the episode, but I hope you enjoy it. As mentioned in this episode, it's going to be raw. It's going to be all over the place. We're going to go off in tangents. While we do have an idea of how we want to structure it on a very vague point of view, it still is all over the place. And I think that's going to be the theme moving forward, which I think makes it a lot more interesting to listen to. So anyway, hope you enjoy, and plenty of links in the show notes as well.
Hello, drinking support hotline.
Good morning.
Good evening. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I'm all caffeinated up. I'm probably gonna.
Oh, very nice. I'm actually reaching out for coffee now.
Ah, nice one.
So,
nice one.
Yeah.
It'll work better for you because obviously it'll keep you fueled for at least the next few hours. But for me, I'm going to regret it in probably about an hour's time when I'm going to be staring at the ceiling.
I can see you doing maybe 6 or 7 episodes of the podcast now in the next few hours.
I'm going to get on a roll. I just know it.
Oh man. So yeah, I'm in the car again, just heading out to get some coffee and come back. It's a good morning. It's a national holiday over here.
Yeah, what's the holiday?
It's Martin Luther King Day.
Ah, okay.
So it's nice because it's like a Sunday do-over. You know, it's like if you didn't get drunk enough on Sunday, you have another chance to do it today.
I like it. Well, I don't know. So I guess for anyone who's listening, we were thinking about doing sort of a monthly catch-up, just sort of a bit of a check-in, see how we're doing, have a bit of a chat. We're always bouncing messages backwards and forwards, and a lot of funny stuff going back and forth. So it would have been a good idea just to, I don't know, document it and get everyone else joining in and listening and contributing as well. So my idea, and I'm sure it'll change as we move along down the track, but I thought of having our three little sections of our monthly catch up, so we can have our little main feature topic that we can have a chat about, and probably spend most of the time on that. Well, depending on which way it goes, we may end up brushing over the main topic and going to the other ones. And then we could have because we've been talking lately about some certain crazy people that have been reaching out for better or worse, and so I think that could be quite entertaining. So figured that might be a good thing just to constantly touch on each month, to see which crazies have entered our lives in the last few weeks since we last spoke, and then just to keep in, I guess, in theme of this year and the whole, at least for us on our end, the road to ProgPower, we could do a little bit of a check-in and see how everything's going from your end with if there's anything behind the scenes or just a little bit of from the organising and the preparation point of view, and then I can certainly chime in with anything that we're doing on our side as well, and that might just get people's interest tuned in with what we're talking about. Awesome.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. This should be fun.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's going to get very silly and very all over the place. And we're going to go off in tangents. It's going to be very rough and raw. But I think that's what's going to make it great.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, cool. Well, I when we last spoke on the last episode, however long ago that was, we did sort of brush on this very, very briefly, and I said that we do a part 2 sometime, and I figured this would be a great opportunity to do it, to talk about the do's and don'ts of being in a band, but really from a promoter and a booking agent point of view, which, that's your domain. And I think from a lot of bands' point of view, we, at least from a musician and being in a band, we always sort of go off the experiences of our peers as far as other musicians and other artists go and what they do and then their trials and errors. And we don't really hear a lot from the other end. So I think it'd be a great perspective for you to sort of weigh in on some of your favourite do's and don'ts or other experiences that you've had in the past with dealing with bands or just being approached by bands.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of the bands, especially these days with technology the way it is, a lot of the bands are coming out with such creative ideas to promote their music and to get the word out there. But when it comes to something as simple as reaching out to a booking agent or reaching out to a promoter, they lack the skills completely. I'm talking about not even being able to write an eloquent email. So I think that's a good place to start.
Let's start the basics.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're trying to pitch your product and you're trying to sell something. And as a booking agent, that is essentially what we're doing as well. It's a sales position if you think about it. But I really appreciate when a band reaches out to me and they're very professional and they're, to the point, and they don't try to make it like their band is the greatest thing on earth. It could very well be, I don't know. But when you hear that over and over and over again, you tend to take things with a grain of salt. But the basics, I guess, for starters, reach out, be professional, be courteous. Don't take it personally if the person you're trying to reach out to doesn't get back to you right away. I'm admittedly terrible at getting back to people quickly. But that's also because I'm doing so much all the time. So you have to, you can't take it personal, and if the person does check out your music and doesn't think you're ready for it, or it's just not their thing, or, they can't work with you at that time, also don't take it personal. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten emails from this one specific band, actually, about booking and about going on tour and about, ProgPower and, how they're the greatest band in the world and et cetera, et cetera. And I said to them, look, you're not really what I'm looking for right now. I wish you guys the best of luck. I can't work with you guys right now for, a few different reasons. And I went on to explain what the reasons were. And the next email I get from the guy is, well, we don't need you anyway. Next year our band is going to go on a big tour. So why are you reaching out to me to be your agent if that's the case? And if you have a big tour coming up, you should be all set, right?
Yeah. Burning your bridges straight away and haven't even got started.
Yeah, it's like, let me know how you can get big tours because that's what I look for. Yeah. So maybe I should be reaching out to you and asking for help.
It's funny, just touching on that really quickly, a lot of bands, and I see with people, other artists that I've, been into interactions with or toured with and played shows with, and you're definitely dealing with people with a lot of raw emotion, and I think people already are self-conscious about putting their music out there and getting up on stage.
Sure.
And what's really funny is for a lot of people that really want to be a performer and be on stage, a lot of them have serious issues with getting up in front of people. And I think when you when you bottle that all up and then you start approaching people and you start dealing with, it's not even just rejection, but people just not acknowledging your existence or acknowledging your efforts, whether it be on a creativity point of view or whether it just be from a work ethic point of view of putting your heart and soul into something. people just react really, really terribly to it, and it just does not reflect well on them and the rest of the guys in that outfit that they're in, and any reputation that they've got out there in the industry within their peer group. And it's unfortunate, does a lot of disservice for some bands that probably deserve a lot later on down the track, but just burn themselves very, very early in the process because they're very sensitive to it all.
Absolutely. I have seen it happen over and over, time and time again. I completely understand. Some people have a hard time with it. I don't want to make it as drastic as to call it social anxiety. But you can't be afraid. You just got to put your face out there. And I completely understand that that's hard for a lot of people, but you're not going to succeed unless you start doing that. It's rough, especially being a younger band, being a new band. You're excited. You're very, like you said, the emotions about, presenting your music to people. It's hard not to take it personal. And so when you combine the overwhelming thought of getting your product out there, because your music is all about your feelings too. So it's part of you that's out there, and when you expose your music to people, you're essentially opening up yourself in a way. So I can totally see some people having a hard time with that, but then again, it's called performing arts for a reason. So yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I can think of a very, very well-respected and well-known artist who I'm not going to name, who simply cannot play live shows. The stage fright takes over him. Yeah, well. and he can't do it. Yeah, it's so interesting. I can't blame people if they feel that way, but it's tough to make it otherwise. I think this particular gentleman is a big exception to the rule.
Yeah, it's I see it on a very local level with a lot of bands, and I think a lot of it comes from more so experience than any sort of internal mental challenges that people are trying to, like long-term challenges that people have. And a lot of the experiences that I see are more around that inexperience of not having a lot of exposure playing in front of people and getting up on a stage and really being, I mean, it's not always literal, but always having that feeling of being judged in front of people, because you're getting up there, you're putting on a performance as artificial and as commercial as that sounds. In the end, you're a performer, you're performing, you're an entertainer. And so people are going to judge you, whether it be very critically or not. People are there to observe and take it in and then process it whatever way they want. So for a lot of people, if they haven't got a lot of experience being on stage, then it can be a very, very daunting thing. And unfortunately, for some people, they don't deal with it as well as others. And I guess that's what separates people early in the piece, and the ones who can handle it well are the ones that sort of stay long term. And I think that's a key word right there, handling it well. You have to have thick enough of skin that you can handle criticism, and you can handle you can just handle rejection. Yep. That's a big thing too. Handle rejection, handle people saying, you guys are not great. I don't think there's ever been any band who have never heard that before. And how you handle these things is very important. If you just fly off the handle and blow up at somebody for saying, hey, I checked you out and they didn't do it for me, it's not going to be doing you any favors as much as you want to do that. I mean, I for a long time, and not just related to the music business, but in general, I had a very, very hard time taking criticism. And I would always take it personal, and I would just blow up, and it never really helped. Another thing too that I wanted to mention before, especially for the bands that are still developing, that haven't quite made it or haven't quite left the so-called local scene. I see a lot of bickering and a lot of drama between bands in a specific scene, in a specific
local scene. Those guys, they're tough to work with, we're better than them, blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is, this industry is too connected. People talk about the whole 6 degrees of separation. In this industry, you're lucky if you get 2 degrees of separation. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's so connected. You know a promoter, and you don't want to talk about a certain other local band because chances are they've played with that promoter before. They've worked with that promoter before. And I see that a lot.
Yeah.
I can think of a few examples here in the States of bands that play a lot all the time and play together all the time and have that sort of bickering back and forth and that sort of rivalry. Of course you want to be the best at what you're doing, and of course there has to be healthy competition, but it has to stay healthy.
And I think the big thing with that, and it happens here in Australia as well, and within all the local scenes in all of the cities, you have this, especially on the lower levels of it all, but you do see it on each tier, sort of going up to on the relative to the size of the band. It's just the bigger the band, the more that it seems to be a bit more controlled, and people are a little bit more diplomatic about how they handle it and how they handle each other. For us, I mean, there's a lot of artists out there that we probably wouldn't have very nice things to say, but you know what? We just shut up, and especially if you're dealing with people on a professional level where you don't really know that person that well, and it's not really a time and a place to have a conversation that's sort of very sort of candid and well, not professional at all. You have to be very careful. It's a time and a place for things, and you have to be appropriate in the right circumstances. But we see it on the local level, and I think the big thing that bands forget about is that, and it's exactly what you said, it's that healthy competition. And people see competition as a negative thing, and it comes back to that lack of not having the confidence in what they do already. So they're already sensitive and highly emotive to what they're doing, and they're trying to get a praise and recognition from their peers and everyone in that local scene. So they're already raw as it is. And then when they see another band that's getting a bit more attention than what they're getting, then they take it the wrong way instead of feeding off it and becoming better and better and better. So it's a big problem we have in Australia with a lot of local bands, that they're too busy worried about the other band potentially stealing their fans or taking the attention away from them, instead of looking at it and going, well, you know what? I can actually do something with this and learn from that and become better than what we were before. And
Absolutely. And there's also another thing too. As cliche as this is going to sound, a united, quote unquote, local scene will always be stronger than one that is not. There are certain cities over here in the States that I know of that every band in that particular local metal scene gets along well and likes each other. And a lot of the times, the local shows do better attendance-wise than the regional and the national tours, because it's almost like, oh, our buddies from such and such are coming to play at this bar tonight, and everybody goes see them. And then when it's your turn to go play that show, those guys will go to go play that bar. Those guys will go see you.
That's it. They get it.
It's rough when I see this all the time too, because I a lot of my shows I tend to book local support. And let's say I book 2 or 3 local bands. One goes up on the stage, plays their set, finishes, and then leaves. They don't bother sticking around for the next local band. They might or might not come back for the headliner. And I just don't get it. Like, if you're so passionate about the music and if you enjoy the scene so much and you're part of a cool event, why would you leave? Like, I'm not saying you have to stay and watch the whole thing, every single song, but be a part of it.
That's it. It's keeping up appearances and showing your support by even just being present at times to be in the right place in the right time to ensure that people know that you're legitimate and you're genuine about your intentions. But it's the same here. We play shows here as well, and the bands before us, they just get in their cars, pack up, and take the gear out straight away out the back door and drive off, and then you almost feel like turning around, because I book a lot of our own shows, so which is good and bad, but sometimes I feel like being the asshole and turning around and saying, you know what, why should we pay you when you're not sticking around and doing the right thing by everybody else? But but you have to do a bit of a risk assessment there and go, well, is the is the grief that's going to come from this worth it to try and make a point, or do we just sort of just pay them and just not book them again, which is usually the better avenue to go down. And then they wonder why they don't get shows later on.
Just recently I looked. I'm going to do a shout out to a band called Next to None from the state of Pennsylvania. They're new band. They're on Inside Out Music, and their drummer is Mike Portnoy's son. So it's really cool. They play modern metal. They're young kids. They're all 16, 17 years old, and they're very good at what they do. And just recently, I had a little tour that I did for Ghost Ship Octavius. Actually, I know we talked about them last time.
Yep.
And Next to None was supporting them. And I thought it was really neat how one of the guys in Next to None, the singer, he was in the middle of the floor for every single band before their set. Even the band right before their set, he was watching every single show. They played their show. They did a great job. And they came off the stage. He was back on the floor watching Ghost Ship finish. And I just thought it was so cool. I mentioned it to a friend of mine. I said, I wish I would see more of that. Because there he is. He's enjoying the music. He's supporting the bands, local and not. And it was just nice to see, especially being somebody who's brand new to the scene. Absolutely. Already doing the right thing, so to speak. I thought it was really cool. So big shout out to them, because I think they're on the right track. So.
That's cool. I'll put a link in for anyone who hasn't heard of them, especially down my way. So that sounds cool. But it's it is good because it's genuine, and he obviously gets it to a point that he loves it. He's still new to it and it's still fresh and great, but understands that what, I want people to stand in front of me when I play and enjoy and appreciate what I do. And, if I can do that for somebody else, I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end. So that's just doing their part. And I think a lot of people just worry about sort of taking all the time and expecting so much of people, and get annoyed and shitty when people don't show up to their shows. And, it's a common rant on Facebook all the time. I see from bands just getting all annoyed at their local crowds because no one's bothered to turn up. But then those same people are the people that don't go out to local shows themselves anymore. So it's, it goes both ways.
It does. And I can totally understand the frustration as well. When you go, you're excited about a show, you rehearse for months, and you finally get on stage and there's 15 people on the floor watching your set, and half of them are drinking a beer. I can totally understand the frustration. I could see it. I would hate to be in that position, just as much as I hate to book a show and see a bad turnout. But you can't win them all, and you just got to roll with the punches.
That's it. There's always something you can take from it, regardless. Anyway, it's the silver lining.
Exactly. That's exactly right. You if you really stop and think about it, you will probably find a reason. There is a reason why people don't come to a show. Okay, whether it's booked on a bad place, whether it's booked on a bad night of the week, whether the lineup is bad, there are reasons. So if you stop and try to think about it and try to figure out why it didn't work this time, like you said, it's a silver lining that will help you correct it the next time. And hopefully you're gonna come play a show and you're gonna see a better turnout.
Absolutely.
I will say one thing though that we haven't mentioned. With the whole do's and don'ts thing. I mean, it seems that we're sort of focused on the don'ts for now.
We're so negative.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, let me tell you something. It's Monday and it's 8:30 in the morning, so I earned my right.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, but in all seriousness, if you want to get your brand your products in front of professionals in the industry that you're hoping to want to collaborate with you and help you get to the next step, you have to present a good enough product. And I know talent is subjective. I know your taste might be different than mine, but ultimately you have to be good at what you do. Don't come with, a 4-track demo saying that this is the next greatest thing and we're totally ready to go out there and play. You don't even have to pay us. Well, guess what? I wouldn't pay you because with this product, it's just not going to happen. Present. Take your time. If you're going to put out a demo, if you're going to put out, a couple songs to present to people, take care of it. Take your time. Put your best work into it. Put effort into it. Don't half-ass it, because we can tell when a band didn't pay too much attention, and I don't mean just the recording quality of it, because at a starting level, chances are you're not going to be able to hit a super fancy and great sounding studio, but be as good with it as you possibly can. Be humble, but be confident at the same time. It's a very, very fine line in between. Just last night, I received an email from a power metal band here from the States, from California. Very well articulated, short and to the point. This is who we are. This is what we're looking for. If you want to hear more about it, here are some links. I checked the music out, and they just blew me away. I heard a song. I liked what I heard. I sent them an email back. I said, I really want to hear more, and they sent me their album that they're releasing next month. And Andy, let me tell you, they blew me away. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to work with them just because I'm so busy, or I'm not making any promises. But they did everything right, and you have to praise that, because when you see too many instances of I will call bad decisions when reaching out to people.
Yeah.
When you finally see somebody doing it right, it's nice and refreshing.
Maybe just to touch on that really quickly, and you made that point of it, and one thing that I've seen a lot over the years when industry professionals have been interviewed or they weigh in on topics and whatnot, and the question always pops up with, how do people approach you? What's the best way of doing it? And the common thing across majority of people has always been, keep it simple. We don't want
keep it simple.
We don't want War and Peace. We don't want something that's just overly complex with too much stuff and too many things that we have to sift through and whatnot. We just need something that's simple, professional, and it's to the point. And you mentioned that just with that example of that particular band. So I guess just from, and it's difficult in the sense that there's many different ways of articulating a pitch or a proposal or anything like that via email, and we'll just stick on email for probably the best format. But right. I guess from what you've just said then with that particular example, I assume that you probably just really need something that's as far as a blurb about who you are and what you've done, but very, very refined, and then some, whether it be accomplishments and whatnot mixed into that blurb, and then as you said, direct links through to music and obviously selected tracks, not just here's a full streaming EP or album that you have to sift through 3 or 4 minutes of some epic intro that doesn't go anywhere. So yeah, so I assume that's what you look for.
I love it when I get those emails that are basically the entire band's biography on the body of the email.
Yeah.
And it's like 2 pages long, and it's like I try to listen to everything that's said to me. I really do. And I try to get back to people. Again, sometimes it takes forever because admittedly, but I'm a busy guy, and it's not to dish anybody or anything like that, but and I'm sure other agents and other promoters and everything, we always have so much going on that you're helping us and you're helping yourself if you're like we said just now, short and sweet, brief and to the point, well articulated enough. There's a better chance you're going to get a better response, and even if it's not a positive response, even if they're not going to get back to you with what you want to hear, at least you put your music out there in front of them, and they took their time listening to it. I like a nice, well-written email. Like I said, short, couple paragraphs. This is who we are. We are such and such band. We're from this area. We've been playing for this long, and like you said, maybe some accomplishments and why you're reaching out. That's very important.
Yep.
I can't say how many emails that I get that, hey, check us out, blah, 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 blah. Okay.
Cool.
Sure, I'll check you out. Thank you. Am I supposed to write back and say, hey, good job? Am I supposed to know why you're reaching out? I'm not trying to be rude. I know people are just trying to present their music, but tell me why.
Yeah.
What do you need? What would you like? Yeah. What are you trying to get out of this? I would like to know so I can properly respond to you whether or not I'm able to help you with it.
And maybe just touching on what you said with the with sort of the lengthy emails, that's one thing that I had to learn the hard way from my end, because I would send out all the emails to whether it be booking agents or labels through Europe and the US, and try and pitch the band, and I was always too worried about preempting all of the negative thoughts that they would think about us. And we're from Australia, we wouldn't have enough money to get over there. How would they afford to fund us, and all these sort of things? Then we'd try and talk ourselves up because they probably haven't heard of us. Try and make ourselves look legitimate, and you would never get anything back. Or when you did get something back, it was very brief and to the point. It was basically thanks but no thanks, and you knew that they just didn't have the time to go through and sift through all the rubbish that I'd spent half an hour writing an email. And I did find that once I cut the crap out and just went, this is who we are. If you want more information on anything like that, by all means get in touch. Here's some music. We would love to do this. It'd be great to hear back from you. And then just kept it at that. And we found that we got a lot more response and a lot more positive outcomes from taking that approach from it. So, but I had 100%. I had to learn the hard way. It took a long time to realize.
And that is good. I started as I was a booking agent first, and then a concert promoter. I learned when I started booking, I learned the same exact thing. I would send these super long pitches about a band or about a tour, and I'd get nothing. And finally, I decided to take a completely different approach, much similar to yours that you described, and the results were like night and day. So that's exactly why people are extremely busy. 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to get a response back. You're not going to get a reply. You're not going to get an email. It's just how it is. It's just how the industry functions.
That's it.
I tend to have a little bit of a different attitude about it. I try to get back to everybody. I'd be lying to you if I said I succeed at getting back to everybody. But I try my best to do it and to at least give people's music a chance. So
it's what actually on that topic about it's definitely something that's common, especially in the music industry. Because if I compare it to sort of the corporate world, if you're working for an employer and you don't respond to an email, then you're in big trouble. So in the music industry, it's very different. It's the opposite, and it's more of the norm that you can send emails out to countless people and get hardly any responses, and you just get used to it.
I will say that I think it might be a little entitlement issue from professionals in this industry as well.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of those things. They are reaching out to me, so they need me. So I have the I have the upper hand, and I will choose when to reply and when, or if and when to reply.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not trying to generalize it, but I can see this happen. I can see people saying, "Well, I don't have the time." If you're reaching out to me, I probably don't have the time of the day for you.
Yeah, it definitely makes it hard for people that are really trying to network and build relationships with people when you got other. I mean, we've have that. It's notorious with a lot of agents in Europe, booking agents, and we've got some great friends in well-established bands in Europe. And we hit them up directly and just say, look, what's your advice? We'd love to do some shows with you at some stage down, over the coming years. And they say, oh, that'd be fantastic. Go through our agent. Here's all the details. Let them know that we sent you through. And you contact them, and they are just ruthless. They are, in particular cases, downright assholes. And they just treat you like shit, and they don't care who's referred you. They don't care if it's the drummer of this great band and they're well established and got a great reputation in Europe. They do not care. And it appears to come from one particular country more so than others, but I won't single them out. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get a foot in the door, and you're always trying to get that referral from somebody established. But even in some cases like that, it still doesn't help. So it is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
But, I guess on that topic, one thing that I'd be interested to get your thoughts on it, for people that do send out emails to people within the industry looking for opportunity and pitching and doing it well. What's your thoughts on the follow-up? What's your follow-ups on, do you follow up? When should you follow up, and how many times should you follow up before it gets annoying and irritating?
I don't think, for instance, in my case, a follow-up doesn't usually bother me because because admittedly, again, sometimes I get very busy and I don't get back to people right away. So a follow-up can be helpful in the sense that, oh God, there's a reminder. I haven't written to that band yet. I checked them out. I liked it, but I haven't gotten back to them. Let me write them. I am all for a follow-up. I am all for a follow-up in every circumstance. You meet an agent or a promoter at a show and you have their contact information, write them a little email the next day or two. Hey, it was great meeting you. I hope that we can, here's our music, or I hope that we can work together or something. I don't know if there's a rule to how many follow-ups before it gets annoying. I think, though, if you send, 3 emails and you haven't heard back, or 4 emails and you haven't heard back, chances are they're not interested. And a lot of the times in this industry, if the person is not interested, it's considered politically correct to not answer. So you're trying to sell your product, so don't give up on it. You have to be a little persistent, but you have to know when to say, all right, this person is not getting back to me right now. There's got to be a reason. Don't try to ponder what the reason is. Just move on and say, well, maybe I'll hit them up again in a few months.
And I guess
and that's it. Like, I appreciate the follow-up. I think it's important.
I guess it comes down to what
Excuse me.
You're right. I guess it comes down to what the content of that follow-up is really. I mean, that's really what's going to turn you from somebody who's genuine and it's professional to somebody who's just downright irritating and annoying. So it's the wording. And as you said, that scenario, if you're meeting somebody in person and you get a card and then you just do that very polite, courteous follow-up the next day just to touch base and say, acknowledge the night before or whatever it might be, and then, but with no intention attached to it, just to, hey, it was great to meet you. We'll stay in touch, and that's it. And that way, you're not coming on too hard. It's it's like dating. You don't come on too hard straight away, and then you just let the whole relationship grow and get stronger and stronger over time, and and give people the opportunity to become familiar with you and what you do. And then over time, you look for those opportunities and see whether anything can come of it. But I see it a lot. I see it a lot with people that are all about the agenda. So they approach people purely to get something out of them, not so much just to network and build great relationships with people, but more so to go in there with a particular purpose and get that outcome as quickly as possible. And they put the hard word on, and then that's when the aggressive follow-ups kick in, because they're not getting that urgent outcome, that they're so desperate to get.
Yeah, the sense of, give me just 1 second, Andy, hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No
I hope
worries.
your amazing editor can edit out that little awkward moment of silence. The whole entire time I've been enjoying the conversation so much that I've been parked in the parking lot and I hadn't got my coffee yet. I just ordered something quick in the drive-thru here.
No worries. All good.
My apologies. So, no, you're right about the sense of urgency thing that you mentioned. You want people to get back to you right away, and you obviously, I can totally understand when people want it urgently, because ultimately they want something. But things happen in due time, I guess. Another thing that I wanted to also bring up that we haven't touched on it quite yet. And again, we are the most negative people in the world, so I'm going to say another don't. Excuse me. It seems that a lot of bands don't understand that you need to make an investment in your band to make it. Especially new bands, you have great music, great material, people seem to like you, so that means you are entitled to a boatload of money right off the bat. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen in pop music. It doesn't happen in rap. It doesn't happen in classical. It's not going to happen in metal. That is for sure. Hold on, Andy. Let me just pay for my coffee here. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's always scary when a sandwich comes out quicker than the coffee. But anyway, it's certainly not going to happen in metal.
Yeah.
You have to. It's almost like going to college. You have to invest. Put money to get that little piece of paper that will allow you to make money in the future. It's almost the same thing with bands. I get a lot of emails from bands. Oh, put us on tour. It would be great. We need this much to make it happen per show. We've never done a tour, and we want to do it, but this is how much money we need to get paid every night. I'm like, wow, that's wonderful. This is how much I need to get paid to buy a new car. Make it happen. It takes a lot of willpower, and ultimately it takes a lot of money to make. I hate to say it, but the bands that have more capital, more funds available to them at a starting level, they do have a bigger chance of getting ahead quicker. I know this sounds terrible, but it's just true.
Oh, that's it. And we've seen it before. We've seen a few Australian bands that have done quite well, and we know that they're financially sound. They're doing okay, but
sure.
But it hasn't been handed to them on a silver plate either. It's they've worked really, really hard for it, and I think for a lot of bands, they're just not willing to put their hand in their own pocket. They expect that they can rock up with their instrument and see the money roll in, when it's far from that. Yeah,
I can't tell you how many bands that I've seen that, for instance, there's I'm sure you've heard of the concept of flying onto a tour.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, frown upon it, totally understandable, but it has become a very common practice. 90% of the bands in the metal scene out there that you see going on a tour with a bigger act, and they're a starter band or they're a new band, chances are that's what they're doing. So it has become a necessary evil almost. And I can't tell you how many bands I've seen, making huge sacrifices, going in the hole $20,000 to go on a big tour with a big headliner and expose their music to that audience. And guess what? It paid off.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to spend that much money every time. I'm not saying you have to pay to get on the tour. But don't be completely opposed to it either. Because a lot of the times it totally pays off. A lot of the times it doesn't. And it just turns out to be a bad investment. But it's business, and that will happen sometimes. So be aware that investing in your band, investing in your career is necessary. And I don't just mean as far as going out there and playing. I just mean in general, put the money towards a publicist. It's worth it.
Absolutely.
Put
a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Put the money towards, if you don't think you have what it takes to manage your band and to develop your brand, put the money towards a manager, find somebody who's willing to work with you, find somebody who knows what they're doing and invest in it. Do a nice photo shoot. Don't have your buddy with their iPhone take pictures of your band and tell me that's, we just did a photo shoot using an iPhone 5S. Don't do that. People's perception is a very powerful thing.
It is.
Okay? So if you can somehow appear bigger than you are, chances are you're going to get a bigger response from people. And I know this sounds a little artificial, but it's true.
It's
make
nature.
it. What's that?
It's human
It is human nature.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So put together a nice fresh pack. Put time and effort into it. Bring the quality product to the table. I'm not saying go out there and record your album on Abbey Road Studios or something. Don't remortgage your house to pay a producer that's super expensive. But be willing to sacrifice. Like I said, I've seen bands sacrifice a lot financially for a tour, or whatever, and it paid off in the long run. When I started, for a long time, when I started in the industry, we talked about it last time when I was in the music journalism thing. For many years, I didn't get paid a dime for it, but I had a feeling that ultimately that's what I wanted to do. So I said, maybe it will pay off later on. So let me continue spending money going to the shows to interview bands and stuff like that. Gas money, train money, whatever it is. I remember I would take days off. I used to work at a coffee shop, and I would call in sick because such and such band was calling me for a 30-minute interview. I would lose a whole day of work just to be able to do that interview, and that's a sacrifice. It's, in retrospect, it's kind of stupid because financially, now that things are a little bit different, but in retrospect, I'm like, wow, I actually did that.
Yeah.
I lost a whole day of work to talk on the phone with the band for half an hour, but it paid off, so you have to be willing to do it.
And I guess that comes down to that genuine love for it, having that passion for it. And you don't think about the sacrifices as much. It doesn't weigh on you as much. It's more of a case of, here's an opportunity. What do I need to do to be able to take advantage of that opportunity? Oh, I need to take a day off work, or I need to call in sick. And you don't even second guess it. You just do it. And we see on the other end of the spectrum where we have actually a really good example of a band in Australia that's no longer around. A band that...
Are they called Dungeon?
Where I'm going with this, whoops. No. But this band was very, very good. They played melodic death metal, very, very polished. They straight away, part of their band had very, very accomplished musicians. One of the guys was a digital artist, a graphic artist, and their packaging, their artwork was world class. It was just, you would not know that they were from this tiny little part of Australia, and their PR and everything, they ticked all the boxes. And then they went out on tour, and they did a small tour. It was only about 5 or 6 shows. It wasn't a big thing. But the guys in the band assumed that they were going to pack places out, they were going to start making money, and they were going to start doing bigger and better things. But reality slapped them in the face, and they realized that, hey, we've got to actually slog this out for a while. And they didn't enjoy it. They didn't like playing. They didn't like touring. And that band broke up about 6 months after they released their debut album. And that band no longer exists. Half those guys play jazz now. So, their real interest in that genre of music, in metal and melodic death metal, was not so much 100% dedication. It was more of an interest, but something that was obviously not long-term for them. They were looking for something that they could potentially cash in on in the short term, because that style of music was very popular, especially in Europe, and they were hoping they could ride that wave. But then they realized, it's not going to be something that's instant. We've got to work at this for quite some time, despite them having this great product. And the whole thing folded, and it was such a shame, because it was what we needed in this country, in Australia. We've got so many great bands, but so many great bands that don't get acknowledged because they just don't tick the last few boxes as far as some simple things such as presentation and having great PR and getting their marketing right and all those things. And this band seemed to tick all those boxes, but then they didn't get the other stuff right. But it was that whole passion, it goes back to what you were saying before. If you believe in it and you're genuine and you love what you do, then the sacrifices don't matter. It doesn't even feel like a sacrifice. You just make it happen.
Right. You just make it happen. Exactly. You just make it happen. The grass is always greener. I have to point that out too.
Yep.
So when you're a starter band, you see all of these bands touring, and you get fazed by that idea of touring in a metal band and playing shows is the apex of everything. It's the coolest, it's the most luxurious thing ever. Think about it. You get to go out and play metal every night and get paid for it and make your living doing that. People don't realize how much it sucks to be on a tour. Especially if you're a small band.
Yep.
It's so much work. And it definitely takes the right kind of person to do it.
It does.
So I see a lot of bands that go out on their first tour and they hate it and they don't understand why. It's because they have these delusions of grandeur, where they thought that they were going to love it. And it was like you said, it was a slap on their faces. I honestly, being honest with you, I don't know if I could be a touring musician, 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
I've gone on tours as a tour manager and stuff like that, and it's fun. It's enjoyable. You get to meet new people. You get to go to new places, and you're ultimately, doing something fun and getting paid for. But it's a lot of work, and it takes a toll on people.
It definitely does. We couldn't do that. We sort of made a pact between us and the band that if we do find the opportunities where we get a great tour invitation or something that we can afford to jump on, that, really for us about 4 weeks would be absolute maximum for us. And unless it was Metallica or something like that on that level. But even then, I think for us, and maybe it's just that whole balance of life and having other commitments outside of music, whereas a younger band who might be sort of in their late teens into their early 20s with less commitment would be more than happy to go out for 6 to 8 months of the year and just live on a bus and eat crap and drink every day, which, I certainly loved doing that when I was sort of in my early 20s, but now it's not as exciting as what it was back then. So
it's really exactly. I hate to burst your bubble, people, but you will grow up.
But I don't want to grow up.
No, but but in reality, like, you see bands that have been doing it for decades, and guys that are well into their mid-40s, and they're still going out there, in a van and playing for, 50, 60, 100 people every night. Those are road dogs, man. They're warriors,
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody, will finally reach a point in their lives when they're going to say, well, maybe we shouldn't do this as much anymore because this is not for us.
Yeah.
But the balance of life does exist.
And I think it's different tiers, isn't there? Different tiers of people. Like, you've got your people that are at the bottom of the ladder that will faint at the first sign of traveling away from their hometown to play somewhere, and they can't wait to get back home into their own bed. They freak out. Then you've sort of got midway where people are happy to be away for a short period of time, but they've got commitments and whatnot. And then you've got people that are just 110% dedicated to that way of life, and that's what they've always dreamt of. That's what they've always worked for. That's all that they've breathed this whole lifestyle. And that's all they've ever worked for. And those are those people that you mentioned before who, in their 40s, in their 50s, that are touring, and it doesn't matter how crap some of the shows are, and how grueling it can be, and how unrewarding it can be at times. They will do it because it's their life. And they love it.
Right.
It's just part of them. And it definitely takes a certain type of person, which I'm certainly not that. But I give a lot of credit to a lot of those people because it's not an easy lifestyle. But I guess it comes back to what we said before. If you're genuine and it's a passion, then it probably doesn't feel as much of a sacrifice for those.
It doesn't feel. Absolutely. I will finally say a big do.
Yeah.
Be willing to sacrifice and be willing to do whatever it takes to get your band to the level that it deserves. For instance, I can't tell you how many bands have reached out to me with phenomenal product, phenomenal music, and we really want to make it to the next level, and we feel like you can help us. I'm like, okay, how long, how many months of a year can you tour? What's your schedule like? Oh, we can't really tour for more than 2 weeks every year. Okay, then I'm probably not going to work with you.
Yeah.
It's, of course, I'm a fan, and of course I like the music. I like the scene, and I like helping the bands because I'm a fan at the end of the day. But this is a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in it to develop the band. So that the band can hopefully live off of their music and make money with it, and hopefully I can make money with it.
Yep, definitely.
Like I said the other time, it's the music business. It's not the music pleasure.
That's right.
Although it can be pleasurable, but if you're not willing to get out there and go on tour, you're never going to grow your band. You're never going to develop your brand, and you're ultimately not going to make it.
Absolutely.
There are very few exceptions of bands that have been able to do it without touring.
Yeah, it's definitely the exception rather than the norm. It's
right,
especially now, probably more so than ever, with product and people buying music is severely less than what it used to be. I mean, there's probably less labels around that take a lot more of that money, but it is harder to sit back at home and produce stuff and put it online or make it available in shops and expect to make a decent living. You do have to go out there and pay your dues and sell T-shirts and sell your music at shows and get money off the door and get your guarantees and whatever else income comes in from that. But you have to get out there and meet the people. Absolutely.
Very rarely you'll find a label that's willing to front money to a starter band. Back in the day, I can only imagine what bands like, I'd be curious to know what a label gave a band like the Guns N' Roses back in the, late 80s to record an album. Like, what kind of budget, what kind of advance? Of course, it was completely different times. But nowadays, I don't know, man, you see some, ridiculous, I've seen labels offering a $500 advance or no advance at all and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, very rarely a label will fund an album these days. So to a lot of those people saying, oh, I want you, here we are, we're a new band and, we've never done it. We're a brand new, a baby band, as I like to call. And we're hoping to find a label that will finance our tours and finance our album. So if that's the case, you might want to start looking for a new job.
Yeah.
Because
good luck.
It's getting, I don't mean to be so negative about it, but it's getting hard. It's just reality.
Well, I think with younger bands now, I think there's less of an excuse to look for assistance for recording, for example, because you can get that, depending on what your definition of a world-class sound is, but to use that term without a better choice of words, but to be able to get a world-class sound, a lot of people can do it from a home studio and can do it on equipment that is cost-effective with a little bit of hard work put in. You don't need a couple $100,000 to get big desks and get a massive studio or spend a lot of money with studio time and all these different things. A lot of people can do it in-house and can do it at home. And it does take a bit of effort and upskill to learn how it all works, but it can be done. So the cost to record is severely less than what it would have been even 5 years ago, let alone 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I think bands have less of an excuse now to go out with their hand out in front of them asking for money from labels to fund an album.
I agree.
So a lot more bands can come with the product already ready to go or in its final stages and say, look, this is what we've done. And some labels might turn around and say, it's not quite there, and then they might throw some money towards a really good mix and master or something like that. But it's, I think...
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think it's some of the older bands that probably struggle with that more so than maybe the newer bands, where a lot of those older bands from, probably from the 80s and whatnot, trying to get an advance for an album, to go into an actual old school studio and belt out an album that, might be cheaper to record now, but still have to find that money because they're not going to start learning how to use, sonar and learn how to record themselves. I'm generalizing here. There's quite a number of musicians,
of course.
But yeah, I think that'd be a difficult scenario for those sort of bands that have had that experience decades ago, but now, have had the hand of reality slap them across the face.
And it's a painful slap, let me tell you.
I think,
but it's doable. Yeah. If you have I think the bottom line of this whole topic is it absolutely is doable. If you have to take the right steps. You have to put effort into it. You have to sacrifice. You have to be confident. You have to be good at what you do. And it does take a little bit of luck too.
Yep, absolutely.
Contacts are very important in this industry. If it's about who you know, and the referral, like you said before, is very, very important, and it could come in quite handy.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's a good starting point for do's and don'ts, or maybe one do and many don'ts.
It all helps. I'm sure quite a few people will get something out of that, and we can always. I'm sure as we continue to chat down the track, we'll find lots of little things that we can vent over and discuss. I think it's a topic that sort of transcends a lot of other aspects of what we both do in our own domains and what we experience on a day-to-day basis. It's I guess one of the things, and this will be a great segue into the next our next little segment on crazy people. No doubt you've had a lot of people that approach you, with pictures and whatnot that you've read and wondered whether they're on the same planet as you are.
Yeah, it seems that, and we are, and just to be clear, we are specifically talking about people within the music industry, more specifically the heavy metal scene, right?
Yeah. We'll stick with that for now. Anyway, I'm sure we'll have enough material for the next 12 months at least. I've gotten quite a few interesting people. That one that I mentioned before that reached out asking for help for tours. Yep.
And then when I said I can't help you, he turned around and said, "Well, we don't need you anyway. We're going on a big tour next year." I don't know if that necessarily fits under the crazy umbrella, but I thought it was pretty nuts. You know, I wish I could show you the email and the attitude behind it and the sass. You know? That one always comes to mind. Well, what about you? I reckon I understand you may have had something similar happen recently.
Yeah, well, this has definitely influenced this segment. I think this is the inspiration behind this, and it will no doubt inspire this segment of this podcast to become bigger and better in the future. So to give a bit of context for anyone who's listening, on our Twitter account, we use a third-party program called Crowdfire. And what that does is I go through and follow a lot of people with similar interests that like similar bands that we sound like. And when people follow back, they get a little automatic message that just says, "Hey, thanks for following. If you like these bands, give us a shot. Hope you like it." Just very short and sweet. And it works wonders. We've picked up a lot of people this way. And one particular person who may or may not be from Atlanta, but I won't say their name just to protect. Probably just protect me from getting any abusive or death threats. But sent a message back saying how much he liked the band and we sounded great and a lot of pleasantries, and it was very positive. And so we went back a few times, backwards and forwards, and it was great. And then the conversation sort of died off, and that was that. And that was probably about, I'll say 2 months ago. And then out of the blue, last Friday, I get a message from the same person again, just picking up where we left off. And I'll read out his message word for word. "I don't want to burst your bubble, but ProgPower USA is a bad scene. Avoid it at all costs. Many bands boycott it. Ask me why." It was almost like one of those BuzzFeed headlines that you see on Facebook, you know. You'll never know what happens next. Click here to find out more.
Yeah, like a clickbait, right?
Yeah,
clickbait or whatever it's called.
That's it. Yeah, clickbait. That's it. So completely out of the blue.
This guy lost 50 pounds in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
See the results here.
Find out what his secret was. Yeah. So I got this out of the blue. I hadn't. Not that I can recall. I don't think I made any. I may have made a ProgPower post probably a week or two prior to this message. Maybe he hadn't logged on for a while and just was scrolling through our feed. But anyway, something had triggered him off, and he sent this message out of the blue. So I read it and got my back up a little bit and just turned around and said, "Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but we've been close friends with the guys from ProgPower for many years, and we're excited to finally be a part of it this year. Not interested, sorry." And then I followed up quickly with a message just to say, what did I write? I also went over last year and had a great time, and many friends have played it over the years. So it didn't really, I wasn't really trying to start anything, but just wanted to try and extinguish it fairly quickly. So,
sort of like nip it in the bud and...
Yeah. So it was a couple of days later and didn't hear anything back. So I figured, he's just figured, I'm not gonna stir that pot. And then I get a message back from him in capital letters. So he really needing to get his point across was, "Okay then, fuck off. That event is a loser." So that event is a loser. "And so are you guys. I know about ProgPower USA as I was once a big part of it, but went on to do more meaningful support for bands that a certain Mr. Harveston will not, and then not with dashes in between each letter.
Oh God.
Not do. See ya.
Oh God. Poor Glenn.
Yeah, poor Glenn. I feel sorry for him. Haters gotta hate, hey? But I had to, as soon as I saw that, I laughed so hard. And I had to do a couple of screenshots and send it straight through to you. And then the idea of doing this little catch up each month was inspired right from this guy. So I do have to thank this certain gentleman from Atlanta who felt the need to lash out and let his opinion be heard.
Also, so in this case, this episode is sponsored by Crazy Nutjob from Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've helped inspire something that's going to be fantastic and help hopefully add a bit more to ProgPower USA and to the bands that are supporting it and being a part of it. So thank you very much for that fuel, that inspiration. You're doing something right when you start getting haters. That's the best. That's the best way I can say. I said last time that I was a fan at ProgPower for well over a decade, and with all bias aside, the guy's wrong. I don't think there is anybody in this scene that works harder than Glenn does for the festival, and I don't think there's anybody in the scene that takes better care of the bands and the audience than Glenn does. So, coming from somebody who's been on both sides of the coin, I think, the guy needs to maybe get a refill on his meds and stop drinking gasoline. And I think eventually he will be fine. Maybe Glenn forgot to reply to an email that he sent once.
I gotta send those screenshots to Glenn. I'm sure he'll be amused by them.
I'm sure. Hopefully he recognizes the person and there's probably a bit more of a backstory to it. But look, you nailed it on the head. I think when you start getting people that are hating on you, you're doing something of worth, because when people don't do it, you don't get any reaction, then people just don't care. There's not enough effort to start hating. Right. So it's a good thing when you got a few people lashing out. And I feel kind of flattered that he now thinks that we're losers because we're part of ProgPower. So our PR campaign in the US is doing really well.
Really well.
Hopefully he bans a few more people along and they campaign against our band and get us a bit of publicity. I hope there's a whole crew that start hating on us.
Any PR is good PR, right?
Hey, I'll spin that anywhere I can. I'll find that silver lining.
See bands, hire a publicist.
Absolutely. So I think this should definitely be a regular little segment on our monthly catch-ups, because I'm definitely gonna look through my emails, because I'm sure I will find some interesting and amusing content there for this, and even at the live shows too. Every now and then you run into people who are a little particular or eccentric or. Yeah, indeed, and we'll keep it neutral. We won't hate on anybody. We'll just have a
I think
we'll have a chuckle.
It's fun.
Have a quick chuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. So
very good. Well, and then our last little part that we'll add in here, and you did make a mention just before we started speaking about maybe just doing a shout out for some unsigned bands as well. So I think that could be quite a good idea. And I did make a mention that I'm not listening to a great deal of new stuff lately, but then I'm always listening to unsigned bands, whether they're new or not. And that I think if they're still around and they're still working hard and they're doing good things, then they're probably just as deserving of a mention as somebody who's fresh off the ranks as well.
Sure, that's great. I can think of a few unsigned bands. Obviously, I'm going to try to be as neutral as possible, although I might at some point mention a band that I am either working with or will be working with, because at the end of the day, I am doing my job in promoting them as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the band I'm going to start with is a band based out of Chicago called Disona. I had somebody, when I was booking a tour for Leprous in 2014, I was looking for good, solid local bands for each show because I didn't want to just throw Leprous out there. I wanted to build a nice show every night, in every different city. And somebody suggested this band, Disona, Dissona. And I said, cool, I'll check them out. And checked out the music. Very different, very unique, very progressive, but incorporating all of these different elements in their music. Some symphonic stuff, definitely a lot of more death metal and black metal and technical stuff. I couldn't even describe what the sound is like. I can think of bands that are somewhat in I call it the new progressive metal that has a little bit of extreme metal into it. Yep. Think of that Australian band Neoblitus Caris,
yep.
Lepers themselves, stuff like that. So it's sort of in that genre. And their debut album, which has a very complicated name, I think it's Paleo-Pneumatic or something, has just come out maybe last week. I believe they are self-released. So even if they're not, they're signed to a very small label, I'm going to give them a shout anyway, because the music is absolutely fantastic, and they are taking every right step. They contacted a great publicist, and they're doing a fantastic promotion campaign for the album. Strongly, strongly, strongly recommend, highest recommendation for me. So check out Disona, and I'm sure you guys are not going to be disappointed.
That's great. I'll add some links to where people can listen and obviously buy their album as well. I'll put that online so people can check it out. I'll add from my perspective, and I think for the time being, at least for the foreseeable future, I'll be really biased and just focus on Australian bands because I'll be patriotic. I'll be the Australian redneck and be patriotic for my fellow countrymen. But there's a band from Tasmania called Tabra, and they've been around for quite a few years. They're still very young. We played with them for the first time 10 years ago when we first went down to Tasmania and played, and they were 16 at the time. And very, very green. Wow. They were playing just very old school mix of Iron Maiden and a bit of Judas Priest and just your traditional sort of heavy metal stuff. And over the years, they've blossomed into this band now, which those influences are still there, but they then take on. They're big fans of Queen. They're big fans of Thin Lizzy. They've got this very bluesy, old school rock sound to their music, but it's still very much heavy metal. And they've got a great sense of humor. They've got a great sense of humor, and they've released a couple of albums independently. They were signed to a very, very small label in Germany, who, from what I understand, screwed them over completely, and they never got any money. The very common story that you hear, and I think it was more of a case of the dream of getting signed to any type of label in Europe overrode the fact of whether this label was actually legitimate and could actually do anything for them. So it didn't go too well, but they've been self-releasing, and they've got a great following here in Australia, and they're starting to get a little bit of presence overseas, but very much still restricted to here at this point in time. But they just finished a national tour with Nightwish, so they got to do some big shows here in Australia, which they never had the opportunity to do do so, at least from a full tour point of view. Voyager hopped on a couple of those shows as well with them.
Yeah, I saw that they played in Perth and they played in, I want to say Adelaide?
Yes, that's right. Yep. Yeah. So I think.
Yes. Oh, and a big hello and a big shout out to our Voyager mates.
Yeah.
Love you guys, and hope to see you back here in the States soon.
Absolutely. They better be listening. If they're not, then well, tough. They don't get your shout out. So.
Yeah.
I'm sure one of them will tune in eventually, but I've got to get them on, actually. I've been meaning to do a drunken one with Simone sometime, and we keep meaning to do it.
There you go.
We keep meaning to do it, but then we get too drunk and forget. So, what can you do? But Tabra are doing really, really well. They're about to release an EP that's going to be out in the next few months. They're doing a lot of sort of the mini fests here in Australia this year. They're going to do a lot more touring, and they're going to start trying to branch out and go overseas as well. So I'll put a lot of links there. Very old school heavy metal, but a really great mix of old school blues, rock and roll in there as well. And yeah, really, really cool guys. So I'll put some links up there for people to check out, and I'll send you a link as well so you can have a listen, because I think you might dig it. Awesome.
I'm looking forward to checking them out as well.
Cool. And finally, before we wrap up, just a bit of a check-in with ProgPower. Any little behind-the-scenes sort of updates as far as organising and preparation, or anything that you guys are doing at this point in time that you got to?
Well, as I mentioned before, and I'm sure Glenn would be a better person to talk about all of the full scope of work that goes behind the scenes, but. We're, moving forward, getting things ready and prepared for this year. And visa work has started, I think, for all of the bands at this point. So we're just moving along and starting to take care of all of the logistics and everything else. I have... as you know, Friday and Saturday nights are sold out. Last time we spoke, it was right before tickets for Wednesday and Thursday went on sale. And in the very first day or two of sales of Wednesday and Thursday, we sold over 75% of tickets. There are still tickets available. I'm not exactly sure what our current number is at, but it's looking really good. Attendance-wise, we still see ticket sales coming in almost every day, which is cool. So we're hoping for the same type of treatment as Friday and Saturday. We're hoping for a sellout. We announced some cool news as far as one of our bands playing on Thursday, the band Pyramids, which is mainly from Denmark, but also a couple of guys, or one of the guys is from the States. We are going to be doing a very special show. They're going to be doing a very special show at the festival with two guests, two former singers of the band, who happen to be Lance King and Matt Barlow. Cool. So it's the first time they've ever had, the three singers on stage together, and I have a feeling it'll probably be the only time this is ever going to happen. So if you are a fan of Pyramids, you're going to be seeing a very, very special set with all three singers.
That'll be cool.
So I am immensely looking forward to that as well. So I think it will be a very special thing. I think those are the main news items. They're not really that new, to tell you the truth, but we're just sort of sailing through, and we're 6-8 months away now. So
it's creeping up. It's creeping up. Yeah,
it's coming, man. It's coming. We already sort of started discussing a couple of ideas for bands for next year.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Crazy how early we do it. Yeah, so we're sort of what about these guys? What about those guys? Started some very minor, very initial, quick discussions, but nothing really serious.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that it's going to be world class, as you can imagine, and as people have come to expect of ProgPower.
And I guess to weigh in on our side, just as far as where we're at with it all, we've as you mentioned before, have started the visa process. So we've been approached and been requested to provide a whole range of documents, which is, and we've touched on it in the last time we had a chat. There's quite a number of things that are needed for the privilege of playing in the United States, and it's quite intensive as far as the criteria is concerned. So we've sent through all of our initial basic information for us in the band and our passport details. And so that's all at least underway. And now we're going through a very tedious process of collating all of our articles, all of our print media, everything where we've been published over the years, reviews, interviews.
Yeah, that is quite a fun part of the process, huh?
And it's quite interesting because it definitely gives a perspective on it all, because we've definitely shied away from a lot of print media over the last few years and stuck a lot more to the digital to try and move along with the times. And so we've had to sit back and go, oh, geez, what have we actually, where's all the magazine clippings and where's all these things that we've had? And we found that there hasn't been as much as we were hoping. So we've started to panic a bit, go, oh, geez, I hope we've got enough that's going to make us look like a legitimate band for the US visa office. But we're getting that all together. It's a bit of a tedious process, but it's quite good because I think it's giving us an opportunity to really freshen up our portfolio and go back and put everything together. So then when another opportunity comes along, we need to pitch to somebody. We've got all this stuff at hand, and we don't.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting that you say that, because I had a band thank me at one point for having them go through this process, because it allowed them to get a little bit of a nostalgia feeling about their history and their past. Like, oh, look at this, we played this show with this band, 9 years ago. I remember that. Like, they thought it was pretty special to relive these moments in their minds just by seeing the pictures of the flyers and stuff. But also because it allowed them to essentially curate their library, and have something that they could show to people and create some sort of a little museum for the band.
Absolutely.
Here's all of our history. You can see press clippings. You can see show posters, flyers, etc. So, it's tedious and it's a pain and it's a lot of work, but you can certainly get something out of it.
It's that silver lining again.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so that's where we're at. We also have just, because we've been using session drummers for the last couple of years when our last drummer left, and we just haven't quite found the right guy who fits and ticks all the boxes, fits the mold that we're after. So we've done pretty well over the last couple of years and had some great drummers on board, but we've definitely upped the ante, so to speak, with the US, and we want to make sure that when we go over, we've got everybody on board that's permanently in the band. So we've just gone through, hopefully, the second last audition with one particular drummer, which we believe we're at about 98% will be our next drummer and be our permanent drummer. But we're just going to give him a couple more little hoops to jump through and see if he passes that with flying colours, and then we'll be well and truly set. So
That's awesome.
We're looking forward to that, because one thing that we want to make sure when we do come over to the US, whether it be the festival itself or the festival plus a couple of club shows or whatever it might be, that we're bringing the A game and we're 100% ready to go and really leave a great impression on the audience there. So
that's fantastic.
We've almost filled that last spot, so we're gunning to go.
I cannot help but to think of Spinal Tap with all of your former drummers. I'm just getting a picture of a drummer exploding on stage during a Lord show.
Yeah, with the little green goblet on the drum stool.
Yeah, exactly.
I tell you what, if One day maybe we should write a book about all the drummers that we've had. I reckon that could be a bestseller. And it could be very close to Spinal Tap, to be honest. There's some fantastic stories.
It's all about the bizarre gardening accidents, right?
We've certainly had some interesting stories, or some stories that have had to be fabricated over the years just to save some face. But it's definitely been a wild ride over the years, and at least now we can look back and laugh, because at certain points along the way it certainly wasn't funny, but now we can certainly laugh. So all steam ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to having you guys over, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys play. And I'm sure it'll be a great time, and I'm sure people are going to love it, and I'm sure you guys will have a good time as well.
Absolutely.
Just as much as I'm looking forward to doing this with you every, once a month, or however often we can do it. It's great. It's a pleasure, and it's very enjoyable.
Likewise. We'll definitely make the most of it.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely talk about enough crazy people. So
that's right, and we'll think of a new topic for next month as well.
Yeah, and definitely let people know on Facebook, on the pages, if they have an idea of something they want us to talk about, or it's definitely welcome.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're the boss, but
No, this monthly catch up is going to be 50-50. So we'll work it out together. We're both got equal creative input.
It's an honor.
All right, cool. Well, take care, and we'll catch up in about a month's time.
Sounds good, my friend. Have a good one.
Okay. See you later. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that one. I always say that, but I really do. I really sincerely hope that you enjoy it, and you enjoy every other one. As said, this will be a monthly catch-up, at least for the foreseeable future, until either of us loses interest, but hopefully not. I think it'd be great to do it at least up until the festival in September. So we'll have a few catch-ups between now and then, and we'll see where it all goes. It might change format. We might change some of the little regular things that we touch on. There's no rules attached to it. I just think it'd be a great thing for us to check in and have a chat and have a laugh each month, and hopefully you all get something out of it. And I think this episode was quite good because we're able to touch on some constructive things that I hope musicians will be able to get something out of. And maybe just people within the industry who can relate to it or might be able to provide some additional input to it as well. So we'll try and make the main topic something of worth. It's not just entertainment value, but something that's constructive and informative. So hopefully people will really get some benefit out of it, not just being mildly amused with our banter. As far as shopkeeping is concerned, website, andysocial.net. You'll find all the show notes from this episode and every other episode on there. So all the references that we've made in our chat today were everything from the unsigned bands to references that we made within the main topic will all be in the show notes, so you can check them out. And please, if you do find anything of interest from listening or in the show notes, please spread it around and contact people and let them know you heard about them or whatever it was through the podcast. It definitely helps us and me specifically. And it's just good to give back to other people as well. Get onto iTunes, rate, review, leave a comment on there. That all helps. I've been doing a lot more research with how to get into the charts with iTunes. It's not a simple process and it's not straightforward. There's a particular algorithm that's within iTunes itself, and I've been doing a lot of not a lot, but I've been doing a little bit of Google research to try and get an understanding, and it looks like it's a calculation that iTunes comes up with, which is based on frequency of activity as far as listening and reviews and comments and whatnot versus overall number of listeners and overall number of subscribers, etc. So the more interactive that you guys can get with the podcast, the better it's going to be for me. But that also puts pressure on me to potentially make the podcast a little bit more regular down the track as well, because I think with the number of podcasts that I put up, I think that will also help my chances of creeping into the bottom of the iTunes charts as well, which is a bit of a goal of mine for this year. I'd like to get in right at the bottom rung of the charts. I don't know what it will take, or to what extent, as far as number of episodes and listeners and subscribers and ratings and whatever it might be. But I definitely want to do whatever I can to try and increase my chances. And if I can get in right at the base of that chart, then mission accomplished, and anything more than that will be a bonus. So that'll be my little goal for this year. As always, for listeners, use the code word AndySocial, one word, on our Lord Store web store for any of the Lord and Dungeon merchandise, and there's some other band merchandise on there as well. You'll get 10% off anything on the store. That code will be used indefinitely moving forward until further notice, and that's my small way of saying thank you for supporting. So please hold on to that code. If there's nothing that you want to get at this point in time, have it on hand for whenever we release a new product, and there'll be plenty of new stuff coming out over the coming months. So have that ready, and you'll get a nice little discount as my way of saying thank you for listening each week. I was going to say each month, but each week, and supporting what I do. One last thing that I'll do before I wrap up really quickly is I'm having there's a bit of an idea, and I'm not going to go into too much of this because it's very much a vague idea at the moment, and I will think about this more over the coming weeks, is I want to do a get-together of some sort. The term that keeps coming into my head is podcast party, and I don't really want to call it that at all. I think that sounds very, I don't know. It just sounds very, very nerdy and very wanky in a way. But I like the idea of promoting a get-together somewhere in Sydney, preferably somewhere either in the city or in the inner suburbs of Sydney, and giving everyone anywhere between 3 to 6 months notice, and just locking in a date and not doing any promotion of it. So I won't be mentioning it on social media, won't be posting it anywhere, no flyers, no event pages, nothing of the sort. It'll be purely promoted or mentioned in each episode of the podcast as it comes out each week. And as time will move on, I'll give more information with regards to it. And then it's up to you guys. If anyone in Sydney wants to come out and have some drinks, and it'll be very low key, it'll be very casual, won't be any sort of performance or any. I don't think I'll even record it. I don't think I'll do anything along those lines, not at this stage. I think it's more of a case that I'll just organise a get together where we can have a drink and chat and hang out and I don't know, just see where the day or the night goes. And we might make it a semi-regular thing that happens every few months, and gives everyone plenty of notice. And for people that are interstate or people that are overseas that listen to the podcast, if you ever happen to be making a trip to Sydney, whether it be for business, family, or holiday, maybe it might coincide with one of these get-togethers, one of these parties. So I'll flesh it out a little bit more. It's very much a raw idea at this point in time, but I think I can do a lot with it, but still keep it very casual and informal. And I want to make it kind of exclusive in the sense that I won't mention it anywhere else, but have some additional things there to make it exclusive. So whether that be certain things that I will have there for people, whether that be, I don't know, whether it be guests, entertainment, free stuff, I've got no idea. But I'll think of a few things that will just make it very special and not just your typical get-together as well. So I'll still do my best to keep it informal, but I'll try not to get too carried away with it. But I really like this idea, and it could be quite good, especially if it becomes a semi-regular thing as well. But enough of that. I thought I'd just plant the initial seeds, and over the coming weeks I will flesh it all out and commit to it and pick a date and give everyone plenty of notice, and hopefully people will throw it in their calendars, and hopefully we'll turn into something really cool over the coming months and hopefully years. So that's it. AndySocial.net. You can find me on Facebook. Just search for Andy Social Podcast on Facebook, or you can just do facebook.com/Andy Dowling Official. I'm on Twitter, Andy Dowling. Where else am I? Instagram, Andy Dowling, and they're probably the only places of note. lord.net.au, lord.net.au/store, where you can use the code word AndySocial to get 10% off. Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, whatever other social platform that you can possibly think of, type in Lord Official and you'll find us on there. And any support that you guys can give, sharing, passing around either the podcast or the music for the band, anything you can do to spread the word means a hell of a lot to us. So thank you as always for the support, and we'll catch you next week and next month with the next catch up with Milton. Cheers, guys.